working in Coquitlam with the MDI for many, many years, is a huge cheerleader for the project. She's the Learning Services Coordinator for School District 43, and so she works a lot with social emotional learning and supporting safe school initiatives in the Coquitlam School District. And she has some amazing skills at getting schools and principals involved and excited about the MDI. So I want to make sure that we can share her thoughts here. Henry, are you able to put her online? Okay.
I am. Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfectly.
Can you? Oh, good. Wow, that was a really nice introduction, Michael. I'm feeling very, very good about that. That's very kind. All right. You want me to go ahead?
Yeah. Go ahead. Go roll with it.
Okay. Well, hi, everybody. So I'm on today, and I've got a couple of things I want to share around just really using the MDI in a way, or setting up things in a way that can help you perhaps be as successful as you can be with this work. Because here's what I'm going to say about, it can become overwhelming. You can look and go, oh my goodness, how are we going to get teachers on board? This is a lot. I am a teacher myself, and I know at this time of year, it can be very overwhelming with everything coming at you. So there are things to think about in terms of really rolling it out in a way that gets people excited. I have to say, Coquitlam started off as one of the first MDI implementers, and we started with paper and pencil surveys, and I cannot tell you how far it has come and how amazing, just even sitting here looking at the last thing you showed us, Michael, the Discover MDI page, and just having everything in one section. Thank you so much. It is unbelievable. That is amazing. And that was one of the things I was going to say is, for the longest time we had, I think it's really important, especially to have a face to the MDI in a district. So I am that person, along with right now our Assistant Superintendent, Rob Zambrano, and my colleague, Jeff, who's also one of the MDI champions. And I think that's important for people to have a face, because it's one thing to have this portal, this amazing portal to go to, but they also tend to, because everyone's busy, ask Marna, ask Jeff. So we actually, a number of years ago, put together for our own site an MDI site. And what I'm thinking now is, that was where we put any of our recent reports, where we put any links to things that got people to those kinds of sites like the Discover MDI. So I still think we'll do that. We'll just be able to take a lot of things off it, because of course, all those wonderful instructions and the step-by-step and people to contact is now in one place. And so thank you for that. So that would be one suggestion, is just thinking about how you're going to have sort of a centralized location, because it can get a little bit like, what's the next step? And so just thinking about how you're going to make your life easier so you're not fielding calls all the time. How can you give people the things they need? Quickly, one of the things to think about is just how do we help people understand the why of MDI? Early on, I was lucky enough to work with, at the time, our Assistant Superintendent, Maureen Dockendorf, who sort of led this project. And she did something to begin the whole process, and that was to bring both, administrators, a key teacher lead, and we couldn't have it for every school, but we definitely considered maybe 10 to 15 teachers to have in the room. And of course, leadership, our district leadership team. And everyone was in the room to really hear about what this tool was, why it mattered, what kind of ways we were hoping it would help us support kids. Because at the end of the day, it's really what we want this information for, is how can we help support kids in our own schools, and of course within our community, and have those conversations. So I just really recommend thinking about how you might bring your stakeholders together, and maybe you're going to do that in small groups moving forward, because it's can be a lot to have everybody in the same room, or you're going to use structures you already have in place to be able to kind of walk through the why of the MDI. And I think that started us in it really had everyone on the same page. And then I would say on the other end of that, as Michael mentioned, there has to be follow-up, and how you do that can look different depending on where you are and what you're thinking about. But data can be intimidating. It can be like, what does this all mean? And again, the MDI site that you've prepared, your team has prepared, is amazing. That field guide on Discover MDI is so helpful. And actually, Michael, help me, there's a section where you can find questions to ask. What is it called? It's called Making Sense, I think. Making sense of the data. And you can go on there, and there's a lovely set of questions that we've used, things that you can ask people like, you know, considering the results, you know, what new questions emerge for you from the results? Who else might be interested in these results? What strategies can you use to share these? And then there's a reflection piece. You know, what stands out for you? And they're wonderful questions. And actually, we've used them in a number of ways in small groups, but our district leadership team, our assistant supers, meet with smaller groups of admin, and they've actually brought those questions in to admin in the spring and just had a roundtable around MDI results at their school, and used those questions to start getting them kind of thinking about what this data means, so that they can then go back to their schools and navigate those conversations with both their teachers and their parents. Because what I've found is that administrators end up doing a lot of this work, and so really equipping them with confidence and with the ability to kind of talk through these conversations is super important. As a result of that, we saw a lot of interest. We saw middle schools for a number of years wanted more specific data beyond their MDI data, and so worked with a critical friend of ours to create, as a result of what they saw in their MDI data, more specific sort of short versions of surveys to kind of get at some of the specific issues, things like peer-to-peer, after school, because they were seeing, they had lots more questions that they were asking, and they wanted to get up more specific information so that they could then put some plans together for their, what we call our action plan goals, or action plan for learning goals in each school. And so the MDI was sort of a catalyst to begin the conversations of more specific questions around, okay, if we're seeing something around challenges with peer-to-peer relationships, what can we start to talk about that we can do to support that? But what other questions do we need to ask our kids to get at some more specific information about that? We've seen schools work with kids and the data and ask them their thoughts around what they're thinking. Certainly it's provided a catalyst for our community conversations. People like Jeff, Susan Foster, Angela Lamb, who's our Middle Childhood Matters community tables, have orchestrated and facilitated great conversations between our district and community tables in this data, just to help with some projects and funding and discussing what needs to come next. And I think the last thing, and then you can tell me if I've covered everything that you guys want me to talk about, I think the last thing for me, the MDI in those kinds of conversations, however you do it, the why at the beginning and, you know, all the way through, you're certainly providing support for the how, but at the end, that bookend of what does this mean? I think that if you have those conversations, what we have seen is actually the MDI and the beautiful layout it has really, first of all, legitimizes the conversation about child well-being in our school, but it also it's given our educators and our leaders, because we've interacted with it a lot, it's actually given them language to articulate not only what we're talking about with regards to child well-being, but actually why it matters and how it can be addressed. So, you know, even those 5 assets, when you open up and you read through what those pieces are, my goodness, the conversations you can have around those assets and how they play out in schools and how they challenge us and how they can be intentionally fostered and nurtured. I just really have seen that that's been probably one of the really lovely things that has come out of this work, is just it actually, if you're really thinking about how to have conversations around it and not just looking at it as a data collection tool, that it actually gives people become very creative with other ways of having those conversations, and teachers get very excited about what does that look like and sound like in my classroom every day, because they have the language to talk about it.